like, why would they be able to meet with us during that time? And we didn't provide childcare on site because they're just supposed to figure out how to get there on their own. And so, yeah, we didn't have anything. We were the place they would go to sign up for childcare, but we didn't have a place to like put their kids while they were signing up for childcare. So I would just have like an extra desk in one of the rooms where we'd have like toys and stuff. We would like take turns watching a kid, which was not really best practices. But this whole entire government system was not designed for parents, even though it literally was for parents, right? Um, so also there's a really interesting book. It's called I think it's called Invisible Women. It's about how data collection has not always accounted for the differences in gender. So like they talked about how female identified people typically take on more of the childcare responsibilities in a family, or they're taking care of like elderly family members, or they're in jobs where they are doing that for others, like being a nanny or being a caretaker. And they actually looked at like bus routes and the ways that buses do not help the kind of travel that somebody will be doing if they have like a stroller or a walker. And they looked at like curb cuts and things like that, because most of the people who are engineers who are designing the bus routes, who are designing the sidewalks and the streets, were male, and they were not the primary caretaker for elderly people or their children. Interesting to look at. So able-bodied too, that's a default that we have requirements for things to be to be handicap accessible, but not everything is, especially older buildings. And then we also we think of that as just being ramps, but there's like 100,000 other ways that somebody might have a disability that's not necessarily mobility related, like vision. It could be, like that they have a neurological disorder, things like that. We don't think about that. And the ADA is really not that old. So English speaking, definitely a default. You can hear a lot of stories about that in this part of the country. I think this is a great example. We had this thing we called the 800 number to nowhere in MFIP, in the public benefits job that I worked. So every single piece of paper that got sent out from DHS, Department of Human Services, we were in St. Paul, so it was Ramsey County. So everything that got sent out from Ramsey County had this extra page attached that said, if you need help reading this page, please dial this 1-800 number. And then it was written in like 15 or 16 different languages. They covered their bases. That was the languages that were most commonly spoken within the Twin Cities area. However, if you called that number, there was no option for you to speak to a person who spoke your language until you got through like 6 or 7 of the like dial, it'd be like, press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for, you had to get through like 6 or 7 of those, and they were all in English. So it was like, no point. So there's no point. So yeah, I feel like a lot of our bilingual resources are like that it's like half adequate. So someone has to like actually speak quite a bit of English to get through it. Also, I mean, I could tell endless stories about this, but like we had groups of people who, so in the Twin Cities, there's a pretty large community of Somali people from Somalia, which is in Northern Africa, like on the eastern side. And also we had people who were Hmong, which is like a nomadic ethnicity, where people are from like Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, and China. So those two groups of people have a written language, but it was invented like after 1970 or 1980, and it uses the Roman alphabet. So the Roman alphabet is the one that you're reading on my slide. That's the one that like French, Spanish, Italian, those kinds of languages use. So the problem was we would be able to we could offer things in that language, but they weren't written in a way that someone could read them, because these were with both groups, it was like an oral history tradition. So older people did not learn to read that language. So we would send them a letter that's like written out in like phoneticized, Somali or phoneticized Hmong, but older people wouldn't be able to read it. And a lot of younger people didn't learn it in school because they don't teach Somali or Hmong in a lot of schools. So it was kind of like it was like a square peg in a round hole, like us assuming that you can just literally translate something into a written document that's not a language that's conducive to that. That happens a lot. So anyway, and also another of our defaults is that people are Christian, especially Protestant. This is like, the US is supposedly like a non-religious country, but just look at, if you look at all of our presidents, they've all been Protestant, except for maybe one or two. Two, I think. Yeah. It's sort of implicit. And I think that we forget about this as a majority group. People might do things like say like God bless you, or like I'm praying for you. That could fall very badly on someone who is not religious. So just be really careful. If those are things that are in your lexicon that you like to say, unless you're working at a religious organization, be careful how you use those, because you just don't know if somebody believes or not. All right, so this is a good little guideline for working with diverse groups, that you can kind of apply to a lot of things. It's from the UN Declaration of Human Rights. So you recognize the difference in the group. So we're not ignoring them, sweeping them under the rug. We recognize them. And it needs to be awareness from the group and the group leader. We anticipate. So we're going to think about, what might happen? What might be something that's contentious here? And then we're going to encourage it and like actually talk about it and facilitate that openness. And then we're going to problem solve when things do come up. So we're going to identify what's happening with each party. We'll use conflict resolution models, and then we'll assist people in being assertive. And this, in the problem solving stage, is really of infinite value to our clients, because we're showing them how to get through a conflict without having a relationship completely implode. It's just huge. All right, well, that's the end. I hope you learned something. I'll see you next time.